the origin of Buckeye Institute? How long has it been Buckeye Institute?
Good question. Buckeye was founded in 1989 over in Dayton, and at the time the name was the Urban Institute for Policy, blah, blah. In the mid-90s it moved over to Columbus, which is now where we are. So it's been around for 22 years. I took Buckeye over in September of 2009, so about 22 months ago. Totally redid the website and really got back to focusing on what we thought was the really key issues here. So we're a staff of 3, about a $500,000 budget. That budget largely comes from 3 sources. One, we get about 5% corporate money, so if corporations don't like what we do, they'll send us a check every now and again, but not much. We apply for foundations, grants from foundations. So there are conservative foundations that will apply and say, hey, we'd like to do this program or this thing. So for example, we just added a fourth person this week, a young guy. He's our Deal Fellow. The Deal family up in Defiance. Bill Deal was an instrumental part of Buckeye for many years, and he passed away. And the foundation gave us a grant for us to essentially hire a young person who's a graduate, thinking about going to graduate school for doing public policy, to do a year-long fellowship. So we just brought on Adam, great young guy, who's going to be with us for the year on that funded program. But and then he'll leave and go to graduate school next year when he's done. So foundations, and then the third is really individuals like you guys. We're membership driven, so people join us, and we get from a dollar from a senior citizen that's on fixed income, and that's the best she can do, and we love her for it, all the way up to 5-figure donations that fund our work. And the more we have, the greater capacities we can build to do more. I think I'm now over 10,000 miles on the road. I speak to pretty much anybody who asks me to speak, even the hostile folks. I go into the Lion's Den anytime. I, in fact, love the Lion's Den because I can actually win some of those debates. I always win the debates, but I can actually change a few minds every now and again. But that to us is, I've been all over the state, and we'll continue to be all over the state. So we're going to go into 20 counties over the next 4 months to hold events to really talk to folks and get the education out there. So any help, if you haven't joined us, we'd love for you to join. You can join for as little as much as you want, but all that money goes to funding our work to help us get this stuff done. Any other questions? Yes, sir, ma'am.
How many signatures were validated again?
Their signatures, the Secretary of State, I believe, validated about 950,000, which is a record beyond, smashed what was the previous record in terms of validated signatures. So look, when you're a paid organizer and you've got that union member who can go out there, it's not hard. And when the unions know they need to send a very strong message, they're going to put whatever money they can into that effort.
So those for sure have been validated? For
sure, it's on the ballot. There's no doubt. The debate is going to be on August 3rd. The Secretary of State's office will be hosting the group of 4 people who will decide the actual ballot language and whether upholding Senate Bill 5 is a vote yes or a vote no. And you would actually think, what's the big deal? No is worth about 3 to 5% of the vote, automatic, because voters go in and say no. Don't read it, don't care, no. They just say no. So if you're no, you just picked up 3 to 5%. So that's already a chase. So the fight between both sides will become over who gets the no on the ballot come November. Believe it or not, inside politics. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Well, thank you very, very much for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. So it was a lovely drive up here. Even it didn't rain that much on our drive. Really enjoyed it. The girls are always fun. They thought it was really pretty. It's a great environment. So thank you for having me. Happy to answer any questions offline afterwards, or send me an email, send in the form, and we'll get you on our email list. We send a newsletter out every 2 weeks. We try not to do the everyday stuff that drives people crazy, but we'll send an email that just has basic stuff of what's going on so that you can track what's going on. Thank you very much.
That was pretty informative. It definitely gives you an idea of what we're up against. This $20 to $25 million coming in this year. Oh, that's a bucket of money. And 900,000 signatures on the ballot, where there's 300,000 plus unionized public employees. So what are they going to do? ordered them all to come to the union, bring their wife. There's over 600,000 right there. So we're definitely dealing with big numbers. Nancy?
I have a little anecdote. I have a little story I'd like to tell that happened to me in the office or in the court this week. And it has to do, I had a police officer, he was a lieutenant, come in and ask me about subpoenas we send out. Whenever there's a trial, we have to send out subpoenas to the witnesses. We also send a subpoena to the officer, the police officer that made the arrest, so that he or she can be there for the trial. And this lieutenant came in and said, could you make a change on your subpoenas to my officers? He said, could you please tell them that they should call the night before to see if the case is going forward? And I said, why would we do that? Aren't they smart enough to make a phone call the night before? And he looks at me and he said, well, I really wish you would do it. I said, it's common sense that you're going to call the night before you go to court. And he finally had to tell me, contractually, those officers have to follow that subpoena to the word. Which means they want to show up, even if there is no case or trial, because they will get their full day of overtime. Well, they'll get 9 hours, they'll get 4 hours and 6 hours, however their contract works. So he said it to me one more time, the light bulb went on, and I said, it'll be on the subpoena starting tomorrow. And that is a union contractual item in their contract that they follow it to the letter, to the word. They can't read anything in. And I had no idea that any officer would not call ahead of time because our cases are continuing. So that just happened this week, and
we actually wrote about that issue because that's.
Were you in the court this week?
No, we did that about a year ago. Actually, we wrote a piece about this because she's exactly right. The union contracts will say that if the subpoena people are always the off-duty officer. Always. It's how they actually get all that overtime and rack it up. It's amazing. It's become a system where if they go in and they're there for 15 minutes, it's like an automatic 4 hours. If they're there for a certain amount of time, it's an automatic full day of overtime pay. And it's this perverse system that you just wouldn't believe. Again, if it happened in the private sector, we'd be broke. Well, we are, but we'd be more broke.
We are broke.
Yeah.
Matt, let me ask you a question. Senate Bill 5 has right to work for government employees, but not for all employees. I was just wondering, would it have been better to try to pass a right to work law?
There's a lot of debate over that because the conservatives always, in my opinion, make the mistake of believing that they can kind of focus on the government unions and the private sector unions will just sit back and do nothing. But the unions aren't stupid. The union leadership, right? They know, well, if they get them, then they're going to come after us next. So my view has always been, you might as well have the big nasty fight over the whole enchilada. But that debate was decided, let's just focus on the government ones. We actually have a report that's going to come out right after the election on the right to work issue for private sector Ohioans, because we believe. We put out a report in February that's called 6 Principles for Fixing Ohio. One of them is right to work. And what we did is we looked at all 50 states and we looked at their tax rate, their tax burden, as well as whether they were right to work or not. And there's a stronger correlation between job growth and prosperity to right to work than there actually is to the tax burden. Because, right, businesses will make that, they're not stupid, right? They'll figure out hey, I can do a whole lot more with a union-free environment and deal with the tax burden in the right way. So we believe that's the single biggest issue that will get Ohio competitive with the other states south and west of us.
Well, that's interesting. We had Mark Nix speak to us a month or so ago, the president of the
National Right to Work.
National Right to Work. And I posed the question to him about, well, what about public sector unions? Will right to work help us financially to defeat that? And he said, well, probably some, but you're not talking about a lot of support. Because most businesses that would give for the right to work, public sector right to work doesn't affect them that much. Now, if you start talking about a general right to work, all of a sudden, you're gonna have a lot of big businesses open up their checkbooks. Yes?
Let me politely disagree with Mark. I spent 2.5 hours yesterday with the entrepreneur of the year, 1986, entrepreneur of the year in 2011. Employs 300 people down in Columbus. And where he lives, they're going to try to raise the income tax there by 1%. And it's because, again, the government compensation stuff. It's going to cost him about $110,000, which will pay about 1/9 of the deficit that they have. One little company, right? And so the government compensation issue and that ability to get rid of that labor union presence absolutely does impact the private sector, and they know that. The converse of that is right to work. We did a poll last July, and it polls at about 88%. So even liberals and Democrats understand, even union workers understand, they're better off with a weak union but jobs than a strong union and no jobs. The problem is, once it's on the ballot, and we see this all over the country, right? The unions pour in millions, and actually business community doesn't support it because what they're terrified of, and we're seeing that with Senate Bill 5. Senate Bill 5, the businesses have been threatened by the unions that if they give any money at all to this, they will be organized and attempted to organize. They will have problem after problem after problem. And so what happens is big business actually sits on its hands, and the 88%, because of all the union money, gets driven down to a minority, and we lose those issues. So the key is you've got to make the case in the right way to the business community why this is so important. And you got one shot, and if you win, their prosperity and their be able to create jobs will explode.
Interesting. Well, hopefully we will win this battle this year, and the $25 to $30 million that the union has spent trying to get it passed will just be that much less for Obama next year.
I got one point. Like my company, you got back vacations, everything, right?
Right.
I'm thinking unions are looking pretty good to me, you know? I don't want to join a union and protect my salary. There's probably a lot of people out there. They're saying, you know, why shouldn't I do that? Why shouldn't I do what's happening to me?
Because if you do, your employer's just going to shut you down.
I know that, and I would never do it, but I'm just saying, I mean, the way people think is like, look at all they've cut back.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, and I think that's why we have to make the case, and you can point to, you know, the Continental Plastics, and you can point to the NCRs, you can point to these companies that say, you know, and there's a guy, you know, Donato's Pizza. You guys know Donato's up here? Donato's Pizza, it's a premium price pizza, right? They unionized Donato's, they had to raise the price of pizza by $1 to $2. Guess what? It goes out of business. There's a reason why he's putting facilities for what they do in North Carolina and Iowa, because, you know, he can ship frozen pie crust all over. He doesn't need to do it in Ohio. So you got to make the case that this stuff is going to really hurt Ohio if we don't fix it.
Yeah, there's a Donato's in Medina, but the three other ones that I know is closed.
Just close Donato's, just close here.
Yeah, just closed right over there.
Yeah.
I was wondering a week ago. I wondered
It closed the other day.
because they unionized.
No, they've been unionized. They're probably closing. I haven't talked to the family yet. My guess is it's, you know, commodity prices, right? Pepperoni and cheese are getting expensive. And so, you know, that's one of those things where, you know, it becomes a price issue for them. If the volume doesn't justify it, they're going to have to move on. So, you know, you throw on another piece of that, and that's gets back. We got to fix our economy, and that's the problem we got out of Washington.
I was talking to a gentleman, it's been probably a year ago now, but he works for Timken. And I had been told that Timken didn't make bearings in the USA. There's one time, I mean, Timken and Canton were synonymous, everything. Timken Mercy Hospital, the whole thing. The town came within a hair's breadth of changing their name from Canton to Timken. That big a deal. Now Timken is small potatoes pretty much in Canton. And yeah, I thought, I had been told they didn't even make bearings in the U.S. anymore. He said, no, we make a lot of bearings in the U.S., just not here.
Right. Not in Ohio.
Yeah, his job, this young man's job, is to look for places to put factories. And you know, I'm not going to China or Mexico. He said, I'm all over the U.S. And what we're looking for are places where we don't have union problems. have a lot of willing workers and not a lot of union trouble. So, I suppose, that goes along with the rest of this. Go down south and look for Timken.
Okay. Anyway,
Actually, a piece on that.
yeah.
You know, the one of the things that you hear all the time, right, is, oh, they're shipping all these jobs over to China and India. And they're absolutely shipping jobs over to China and India. But the reason why they're doing that is because a greater amount of the customer base for U.S. companies is actually not in the U.S. It's in places like India and China. And so they're actually putting their facilities not to make products that they'll then ship to the U.S. because it's cheaper. They're actually moving product because they're actually trying to get closer to the people they're serving. The biggest risk we have right now nationally is that these companies are going to figure out, if you keep pushing the corporate tax rates higher, if you start pushing this national labor relations garbage, and you're going to kind of make it easier to organize, we're going to simply, when Procter & Gamble gets more than 50% of its profits from outside of the U.S., and that's where its customer base is growing, when General Motors, when GE, they're going to figure out, we're going to go to a place outside of the U.S. to have our corporate headquarters, and then we're going to lose even more of our not only manufacturing, but our skills professions, which is where the growth is. So this is an issue where we've got to solve this, because the Timkins, it's not a matter of shipping stuff to get cheaper product that they ship back to the U.S. They're actually just going where the customers are, which is smart business. We've got to make sure we don't lose the Timkins corporate headquarters, because that's a whole lot of jobs there too.
But the two are tied.
Oh yeah.
Because, Ford moves their engine plant to China, and what you're saying, they move their engine plant to China, not just because it's cheaper to build the engines in China, but they have more engine customers in China than they do in the U.S. And so it's cheaper to, build them there and export a few here than build them here and export a lot to China. But by the same token, the reason that they are exporting a lot to China, the reason that they're now building them in China, the reason that their customer base is now larger in China, is because we have moved so many other jobs to China. Their economy has exploded. They now have people buying cars. So, the one problem has fed the other. We have now, shipped so many companies there, put so many of their people to work, that they are now buying more Fords than we are.
Although, if you haven't had a chance, go to Google and put in Ghost Cities China. This Australian broadcast company did a phenomenal documentary on they're building cities for 10, 13 million people that are empty to facilitate their artificial GDP growth. So those numbers in China's growth, you see all these, they have malls that are built for 1,500 stores that have 2 stores in it. They have high-rises that are just empty, high-rise after high-rise after high-rise. One of the things I do is I write on national security issues for the Heritage Foundation, and everybody always worries about China. I'm actually not worried about China. I think China is going to implode on itself just because it's been artificially creating this fake GDP, and the vast majority of Chinese, 700, 800 million, are still dirt poor and can't afford basic essentials. That population, as they get smarter and smarter and access to stuff like that's on the internet, just watch when China collapses on itself, just like all the other isms have collapsed. Our focus really is going to be how do we fix America so we can compete in the global environment and continue to create prosperity for ourselves here while helping other countries get to where we are as well.
What about India?
India's doing great. It's a great democracy, and they're growing. They've got a huge poverty problem to deal with as well, and they're starting to. But they've got massive infrastructure. That's a huge market for us to try to help, because
30% population.
Oh, it's huge, and they need John Deere equipment, and they need Caterpillar, and they need our expertise. So let them take our darn call centers. Let's ship what they need to build up. Right, the stuff that actually makes a lot of money.
What did you say to search for?
China ghost cities.
China ghost cities.
China ghost cities?
I didn't even know what was going on.
Ghost.
You'd be amazed at this video. I mean, this Australian journalist walked around, and you'll be amazed at this video. Reveals the truth of what's going on in China.
Very remarkable. I actually am kind of looking forward to the Medina County Fair now that we've got so many educated people. We can educate so many others using the fair. By the way, we do have the sign-up sheet with us here for fair coverage. So before you leave, try to figure out when you're available and when you'd like to help us man the booth. Our membership efforts going on fairly well. Next 2 meetings. The next meeting is not in 2 weeks, but in 3 weeks. Bill Batchelder will be off on summer recess, and he'll be here on the 13th of August to give us an update from the House of Representatives. Scott is holding up the donations bucket, just to remind us that we do need donations, etc., and of course the admission charge. Let's see, the last meeting in September, or last meeting in October, try one more time. Last meeting in August, we're going to have Phil Burris as our guest speaker. Many people don't know Phil and the Citizens for Community Values, but it's the largest group of social conservatives in the state, and they've been around for a long time. They're probably bigger than the Tea Party movement. So he's going to be talking to us about that, and at the same time, they're running a candidate training center at Blue Heron Country Club in Medina. So people are interested in candidate training might want to check that out. Any further news that anybody wants to make? Very well. We have used up our time. Thank you for coming, and have a great day.